Hello everyone, Sketch here, and today I'll be covering the Leang challenge using Dr. Thrax. As usual, I will be playing hard difficulty, and as with my other guides, I will talk about the general strategies that I use to defeat General Leang, as well as various tips and tricks that you can use to get ahead. As with my previous guides, before we jump right in, I will be covering a lot of points regarding various parts of this run. As you can imagine, this is going to be quite a substantial guide, the longest I've done so far, as the Leang challenge just has so much to cover. And if you've noticed the length of this video and you're familiar with Leang on hard mode, you'll know that you only need to take at most 2 weapon bunkers out in the time it takes to defeat her. That's how quick this mission can be with this strategy. So with all that said, let's get right into the run. My Leang challenge strategy can be broken up into 2 phases. The first phase is to take as much land as we need and to get a strong economy going. GLE has plenty of tools to do this quickly and aggressively, so I will cover my tactics and strategies to do so. The second phase is to call in the heat. As you can imagine, this involves Scud storms, a lot of Scud storms. To do so, we'll need to maximize our economy as quickly as possible and to use every means at our disposal to make money. And before you decide to log off after hearing the general strategy, stick around for a couple of minutes first. You might be surprised by the tricks that I employ to get ahead. Now you start in the bottom left of the map, with the cliff on the north and a bridge on your right. Go ahead and get your supply center and barracks started. In hard difficulty, Leang super weapons have a 12-minute cooldown, so we'll have to work quickly to neutralize the first weapon bunker. Once your barracks is done, don't get a rebel, just get a capture upgrade and 4 RPGs instead. Build a Toxin network on the front of the bridge to defend against the first set of rangers, and a Toxin network by the cliffside that will come in handy to deal with a rocket buggy later. When the supply center is done, get the arms dealer started. And once the arms dealer is done, get a combat cycle and a radar van. Load a worker into the cycle and take the rebel that comes out to capture the oil derrick near your base. Now send that worker up the cliffside way on the left behind your supply center and build a Toxin network behind the building so that you can move your troops up and down safely. In the meantime, you should be dealing with the rangers quite easily. So once the rangers are gone, bring your RPGs up in front of that Toxin network by the bridge to defend against the 2 paladins that attack your base. Now just a note about what we're gonna do next before the paladins show up. There are another 2 paladins patrolling the pass beyond the bridge and 2 dragon tanks following behind the paladins. We're gonna take them out and then move them back to the high ground to clear the patrol there as well. The paladins are easily handled, but the dragon tanks will chew up your RPG troops for breakfast, so we're gonna have to call in a little more firepower. Make 2 demo bikes by getting 2 combat cycles and 2 terrorists, load the terrorists onto the cycles, and voila, demo bikes. The first 2 paladins, well, the attacking ones, not the patrolling ones, should have run into your RPG troops by now, so go ahead and move your RPGs forward onto the pass and get them ready for the patrolling units to come into range. Just make sure your demo bikes are ready to swoop in on the dragon tanks when they come. The paladins will come first, so let your RPGs take those out first. Once the paladins are down, the dragon tanks will close in quickly, so send your demo bikes in as quickly as you can. 1 demo bike per dragon should be enough. This should reduce your RPG losses and free up the sector for you to claim the supply dock on the right early and seriously improve your early game economy. There are money drops in the bottom right corner of the map and slightly north of that near an artillery platform, so it would really help if you rush out a technical or combat cycle to pick them up. The cash drops really help you by giving you enough money for a quick Scud storm right after your palace comes out, so try to get them early if you can. Now with the patrol clear, go ahead and bring your RPGs back into the tunnel network, bring them up onto the cliff and into the building right next to the network on the high ground. Hopefully you didn't lose any RPGs, but if you did, it's easy to replace them. Try to max out the garrison with 10 RPG troopers so that you'll have enough to take out the dragon tanks and rangers that patrol the high ground. Manually target the dragon tanks in case your RPGs target the rangers instead of the dragon tanks, as this can allow some of those pesky tanks to get close enough to shoot at the building and kill your RPGs. If you're nervous, you can bring up some quads to fend them off. Now keep those RPGs in the garrison for a little longer. A sneak attack will come out on the low ground later, and we need these RPGs there to take it down quickly. In the meantime, you may already be under attack by 2 rocket buggies, 1 on the high ground and 1 on the low ground. The high ground buggy will try to attack your Toxin network below the cliffside. Fortunately, that Toxin network can shoot up, so you won't have to do anything. However, the other buggy will attack the network near the bridge. I recommend either sending a Toxin rebel or getting a Toxin tractor, as you can use either to move up later and clear the bunkers beyond the bridge. I've tried sending a Toxin trooper before to save money, but there are rangers in those bunkers that usually kill your rebels before they can get in range, so I recommend using a Toxin tractor instead, just to be safe. Either way, now would be a good time to send a rebel to cap the oil derrick on the high ground. At the same time, you can also send a couple of Toxin tractors to deal with the bunkers in the pass. Once you clear those bunkers, you may find it worthwhile to start a couple of Toxin networks there to delay any rocket buggy harass on your supply depot in the pass. In the meantime, you should have quite a sum of money now, especially if you got those cash drops, so go ahead and get your palace started. Don't bother trying to use it as a garrison to establish any sort of defensive line, as you will be using angry mobs to claim the clearing on the right beyond the high ground bridge and the pass as your defense. Use your RPG troops and destroy the surrounding neutral buildings so you can make space to plant down a barracks on the high ground. We will be using this to push angry mobs out across the bridge on the right later. In addition, you'll notice an Avenger and 2 Gatling tanks near the bridge on the north side of the high ground if the Gatling tanks haven't pushed out already. You can garrison a nearby building using a Toxin Rebel, and it should be enough to clear the Gatling tanks quite easily. You can also get German Kel after the palace comes up and decrew the Avenger for your use. An Avenger really helps against her mix later, but you can still get by without it, so don't worry about it too much. Speaking of mix, now would be a good time to get a couple of quads to break to the high ground, if you haven't already done so, as she will start to send mix at your base defenses. A stinger sign on the low ground near the cliffside wouldn't hurt either. In the meantime, if you like this video, it would be great if you could give this video a like rating. It really helps this channel, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you get notified when I do more guide videos like this. Anyway, back to the guide. When your palace comes up, Leang's sneak attack will appear on the cliff face behind your command center. Select your RPGs and manually target the sneak attack building, as they will not shoot automatically. They should be able to reach the sneak attack and the Gatling tank that spawns there a couple of seconds later. Your base defenses on the low ground should be able to clean up the tank hunters that spawn there too. You must manually target the sneak attack. It's very important that you don't miss this timing, as once her vehicles leave the sneak attack, your base will be in big trouble and they will leave the range of your RPGs in the building. Well, if you're not confident in this, it might be better to leave your RPGs in front of where the sneak attack spawns instead. You may lose a couple of RPGs, but losing a couple of RPGs is better than losing a base. Well, now the real action begins. In a couple of minutes, Leang will start to send lots of things to your base. Firstly, after the sneak attack, she will send a helix full of tank hunters at your base. Make sure your quads or RPGs are ready to receive it. Once the sneak attack is finished, move your RPG troops to the buildings overlooking the north bridge on the high ground to guard against Leang's land army. You can easily block half of Leang's army this way. Add a tunnel network on that side as well for detection later, as Leang will send Black Lotuses in about 15 to 20 minutes into the mission. Add more RPGs in the buildings if you want to be extra secure against her dragon tanks. To defend the clearing on the right, you'll need to get at least 2 to 3 angry mobs on both the low ground and the high ground to take this side smoothly. Don't forget to get AK-47 from the palace. It gives the mobs way more DPS to fend off Leang's army way more easily. There are a couple of dragon tanks stationed on the high ground bridge, which German Kel can decrew to make your life easier. Once you have the angry mobs, just have them attack everything between them and the right side of the map. Rocket buggies and tank hunters patrol the clearing, but your angry mobs should have no issue clearing those out. Seriously, angry mobs make it so easy to take ground as GOA when fighting Leang. Bring in German Kel as well if you want to claim the Avengers sitting behind the bunkers. Another thing, in the pass beyond your base, there are 2 paths. And while the upper one is shorter and quicker, it might be worthwhile to just send 1 mob to advance up the lower path, as sometimes Leang can slip some units, particularly rocket buggies, down that side to cause trouble to your supply depot there. By now you should have reached 3 or 4 stars, so go ahead and max out cash bounty. You need the cash for this strategy. Rebel ambush won't be so important in this strategy, but go ahead and put 1 point into it if you want to have free men to quickly claim vehicles you decrewed with German Kel, or if you just want to have rebels to quickly capture buildings. Peel off $2,500 for a blank market, as you'll need the radar van upgrade later. The extra income in the shoes also helps. As your angry mobs secure the clearing, you can expand behind it. Get a whole bunch of workers to the clearing and to the pass if you haven't already done so. Put down a supply stash near the dock beyond the starting bridge, well, if you haven't already done so. Get a second base started there, put down a barracks and an arms dealer in the clearing beyond the pass so that you can reinforce with more angry mobs and quads. In addition, bring in a few quads behind your angry mobs to bring anti-air to the area, as Leang's mix will start to attack this area once you get your base defenses and the artillery platforms and so on going. If you captured an Avenger, bring it here as well. Watch for what Leang's mix target and just station the Avenger nearby to intercept the missiles and the mix. With Cash Bounty, you can also make a lot of money this way and protect valuable assets like oil derricks at the same time. Get a bunch of rebels to start capping all things as well. Oil derricks are a must to capture. You don't have to take the artillery platforms, although they make for a nice safeguard in case something sneaks through your defenses, number 1, well, like Black Lotus, number 1, and they also tend to attract the attention of the mix depending on how close they are to Ling's base, that's number 2. As you approach the supply dock in the clearing, Ling will activate a couple of demo bikes stationed on a high ground just north of it, as well as a pathfinder. Your angry mobs can handle the demo bikes easily as long as they stand still when the demo bikes approach them. But the pathfinder is an issue if you want to move up the ramp later. If the pathfinder doesn't move from his spot near the artillery platform, you won't be able to get that much done, fortunately. But if he moves across and down the ramp up north to hit more of your men, that will be a problem. I normally get Jarman Kelly to counter snipe when the pathfinder is moving, as he uncloaks when he moves. If you do this, be careful of a sentry drone next to the supply dock that will reveal Jarman Kel. Use a radar van to spot it and destroy it with your angry mobs. Alternatively, a quad or any vehicle can simply run in and run the pathfinder over as he goes down the ramp. A combat cycle and a radar scan could work in theory as well. If all else fails, you could just anthrax bomb him. You get the idea, there are many ways to kill this pathfinder. In any case, you should be able to take the supply dock safely once they're all straightened out. Get your rebels to take the oil derricks in your area, and you should have a grand total of 4 oil derricks on your side of the map to make money for you. Go ahead and take the machine shop as well so that your quads self-repair. Once your second base is set up, you should be able to just sell everything in your main base for extra cash, except the command center and palace. Base defenses, supply stash, barracks, arms dealers should be safe to sell off, as you should have built them nearer to the front already. Now the Scud building phase begins. You may want to sell your command center to rebuild it elsewhere to pack the low ground better, but that's up to you. Now whenever you accumulate $5,000, just use it to make a Scud storm because we're looking to make at least 10 Scud storms. Destroy the buildings on the high ground using your RPGs to make space for more Scud storms. Angry mobs are quite effective at clearing neutral buildings as well. Don't worry about making a mess as long as you have enough space for those storms. The low ground can fit about 6 storms even with the command center in the way, and there's space to make 2 or 3 storms on the pass where the dragons and paladins were patrolling. The high ground can fit at least 2 or 3 storms. Sell any non-critical buildings if you have to make way. Once the supply docks run out, also go ahead and sell the stashes. Use those workers to build more storms or send them up to the next supply dock for gathering duty. By now, Ling's super weapons should have already been taken down. Jarman Kel can easily clear the first weapon bunker's defenders, as would an angry mob really. With those clear, you can choose to capture the bunker or to destroy it. Capturing the weapon bunker is preferable as it doesn't leave a toxin fallout to block your troops. However, by this time, Ling may start attacking your rebels using her mix, so you may want to keep something behind the rebel to destroy the bunker in case this happens. Also, if your defense of that area is in trouble, you can use the bunker as a fallback by destroying the bunker and using the 60-second toxin fallout to buy yourself time to rebuild your defenses. Either way, there is also an oil derrick just beyond the weapon bunker that you can capture as well. Another thing is, if you're using angry mobs, pay a little extra attention to them, especially if you're guard ordering them to the area, as they may just decide to aggro onto that weapon bunker and get everyone in the area murdered by the fallout. Needless to say, try not to let them get too close to the bunker unless you're intentionally trying to blow it up. Either way, when you're done with the toxin bunker for a pure Scud strategy, you technically could stop here. But if you're hungry for some more supplies and overlords, there's still a little more you can do. Just up the ramp is a supply dock and a few overlords ripe for decrewing. Have Jarman Kel vehicle snipe them one by one. The hotkey for vehicle snipe is N, so select Jarman Kel, tap N, tap overlord, wait for cooldown, and repeat. An Overlord and an Avenger will also patrol between Ling's front door and the Overlords there. Don't snipe the Avenger first, as the Overlord will probably run it over after you decrew it, causing you to waste that snipe. Decrew the Overlord instead, so that you can not only get a total of 5 Overlords, you can also take your time with the Avenger later. Once you decrew the Overlords, rush the tunnel network with your angry mobs and take the high ground there. You may also want to send a few angry mobs to take down the nearby bunker garrison. Once that's done, bring up a few more quads to deal with the mix, and bring your rebels up to capture the neutral buildings. Ling should be targeting your rebels at this time, so just keep an eye out for them. Remember to continue building Scud storms on the back of all of this. If you want, go ahead and launch a Scud to take down her airfields, as it helps relieve pressure on your front line and bags you some cash via the bounty. But try not to use too many Scuds, as Ling will rebuild anyway. you should be able to bring a worker up to take the supply dock here as well, so go ahead and do that. From here, there isn't much more ground to take that will make a big difference in this strategy. It's okay to stop expanding here and just defend, as you should already have enough space and resources to really rain it down on her. Still, you can easily move all your angry mobs to the bridge before Leang's base. Bring a couple of quads to deal with the helix station there. There are pathfinders on the other side of the bridge, 2 in the open and 1 station in the bunker. So don't walk your angry mobs too close to the bridge until you get rid of those first. You can take out the ones in the open with an anthrax bomb and use buggies or the like to kill the bunker. This should relieve pressure on your garrisons on the high ground. Although if you have enough RPGs there, it shouldn't have been an issue at all. I've tried pushing the angry mobs into the base, but they don't really get that much done, as Leang's Gatling cannons are really strong against angry mobs. That's number 1. And as you can only access her barracks without pushing deep into her base, that's number 2. It's simply not possible with angry mobs alone. The quicker and safer solution is to just spam Scud Storms. As you might notice here, once you've established your defenses, there isn't really much else to do other than to keep the peace and build more Scuds. Unfortunately, keeping the peace can keep you occupied, to say the least. Leang's mix can really rain it down on you, forcing to constantly rebuild or replace quads if you couldn't steal an Avenger. Hopefully you manage to get an artillery platform nearer the front to draw fire from the mix. Now for the Scud Storm execution, Leang rebuilds, and quite aggressively too. You can storm down her buildings and they'll be back up in a couple of minutes. So the best way to use Scud Storms is to use them all at the same time. Leang's victory condition is quite different from the other challenges, and you'll have to be familiar with it to use as few Scud Storms as possible to get it done. For starters, you can skip the power plants, you can skip the supply depots and the base defenses as usual. You can even skip her super weapons. You only have to hit Leang's barracks, war factories, airfields and command centers. You will have to kill the dozers as well. This is slightly different. They count towards victory and they are easy to miss out. If the Black Fog of War hasn't been removed, you cannot fire your Scud Storms on the area. So I hope you got that radar vent upgrade earlier, because you'll have to scan her base before you can fire on it. You can still fire your Scud Storms on places that have the Grey Fog of War, where you can see the ground at least. So go ahead and scan those areas in advance to remove the Black Fog before firing your storms, so that the whole process will be smooth. I recommend just spamming a few radar vents about a minute or 2 before you have to launch the Scud Storms, as you will get plenty of radar vent scans to put down. In addition, try to wait for at least 6 storms before firing them, so that you can fire 2 at each command center, and hopefully your Scuds will be readied up by the time you're done launching the first 6. Start with the 3 command centers. You'll need 2 storms, like I said. You should be able to kill at least 3 nearby dozers with this initial volley. As more Scuds ready up, you can launch them at the rest of her production. 1 Scud goes for her barracks in the north, 1 for the airfields and war factory, and another for the 2 barracks near her front of base. There's another war factory near her command centers, but hopefully the Scud Storms attacking her command centers should have done enough peripheral damage to take it out already. If not, go ahead and launch one there. Usually if you haven't won by this time, it's because there's a stray dozer lurking around somewhere in a base. Find it using your radar van scans and kill it using your Scud Storm. You can also rebel ambush in and kill it, as your Toxin rebels are quite effective at taking down dozers. Construction sites count for the rest of the challenges, but fortunately they don't count for Leang, so it's okay to leave the construction sites be. If you want to style a little more or save a minute or 2, you can also sneak attack into a base. There are a few good spots, mostly in the top of a base, for example between the command centers after your Scud Storms have cleared the space for it. Breach using your overlords and move in from there. As Toxin General, you must have those overlords if you want to breach in the middle of the Toxin fallout, as they have the health to tank the damage. With the sneak attack, you won't need so many storms to break in, just at minimum 1 to clear a good space for your sneak attack. Although in this playthrough I use a few more to be safe, as you can also clear nearby units that try to shut down your sneak attack and the airfields, because you don't want to deal with those MiGs. To make this quick, use a combination of both your overlords for nearby buildings and your Scuds to clear structures further away. Once the Toxin fallout clears, you should be able to use whatever units you want to reinforce your position, but ideally you want the attack to be short and sharp. Again, if you're having trouble with the dozers, the tips I mentioned earlier, like the Rebel Ambush and the Scuds, they still apply. And that should cover this guide for attacking General Leang. There are more interesting things about the Leang challenge that I could cover, but as far as a guide to defeating Leang goes, this should be enough for players with decent micro and macro skills to tackle Leang easily. How did you find this guide? Are there other aspects of the Leang challenge that you'd like me to cover? Did I miss any important details about defeating Leang? Let me know in the comments. Overall, this has been quite a substantial guide and I enjoyed making it all the same. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next guide. Stay safe everyone.